thank you for the organizer. I am very happy to be here and to present, first of all, experiments of physics and on biophysics and modeling. So for the modeling has been done by two PhD students, Joseph and Paul. I have colleague Jean-François Joanny, who is in the room, and who speak 2 days ago, and two experimental groups, Pierre Nassois in Bordeaux, and the Tree Frogs Society, a startup company, sorry, and Loïc Le Goff in Marseille. So I will speak about two different problems that concerning epithelia, one epithelia in vitro and one epithelia in vivo. Yes, I look here. So the first part, as I explained, is an epithelium. So this is a specific epithelium, since it concerns IHPCS. So it means pluripotent stem cell, and in this case, it's human. It's induced human pluripotent stem cell. So why it is induced is because it concerns, in fact, a problem for patient in hospital. So I will explain what is the problem. And the second part is about the Drosophila wing disc, imaginal disc. So for the two class of model, I do not use hydrodynamics, I use continuum model, but I use elasticity and mechanics and elasticity. And I will try to convince you that sometimes it is simple and very efficient. So what it is, a pluripotent stem cell? So first of all, it's cells which are not exactly stem cell, but which have the same property. And of course, it's a hope for medicine of repair. So since we speak a lot these days of the repair of organs, if you do not want to have pork in your body, it may be a good idea to develop such technique. So this technique is, of course, a measure. It's a major challenge. It remains a lot of problem. But anyway, people are working on that, and especially a group of biophysicists in Bordeaux with this startup, Tree Frogs. So if you are interested by the problem, they have many movies on YouTube of publicity for the company, so you can look. They explain very nicely with small movement of 2 minutes what it is a pluripotent stem cell and how we can make them proliferate and proliferate a lot and very quickly with high quality. So the property of the cell is that when they organize an epithelium, it's a cyst. So there is advantage on that. I will show you the main advantage to have a cyst instead to have an aggregate. The defects which are induced by aggregate, which is the OVA techniques for proliferation. So our model, as I explained, is a model of biomechanics, and which needs very few parameters. And the advantage is because of this experiment is, we have many points, many data points of the dynamic of the growth. And and we have only few parameters, so we are safe. We have less unknown than data. So how do you organize such an experiment? It's like this. So you see, you have approximately a picture of the experiment. So the experiment is, of course, done in microfluidic. It is repeated many times at the same time. You have thousands of cells like this. In each cell, you mixed a polymer, which is an alginate, which is a biocompatible polymer. You send stem cells, proliferative stem cells, and nutrient. So you put such things into a vessel, then you have a jet, you observe a jet. The jet is destabilized by Rayleigh plateau, so you have bubble, drops at the very end. And after you put everything into cold water, and what you get a capsule of alginate with very few cells inside. So what happens inside the capsule of alginate is the following things. It is a growing cyst. The cysts are here. You can observe the organization of the cells. It's a bizarre organization. It's more or less because of their shape, trapezoidal. So such an epithelium is called pseudo-stratified by the biologist. So it means you have only two cells which are joined together inside the layer. So it's not exactly a monolayer, but it's not a multi-layer too. It's intermediate, let us say. And the purple, it is the actin cable, which makes some limits, if you want, between the nutrient, the solution of nutrient, and the cyst. And you have a proliferation with that. That in fact we study. So the main problem of this technique is, of course, to avoid differentiation. So the hope is to maintain the stemness, and so the experimentalists, they check a lot, the biomarker for stemness. So you see the colors because we have to prove that it's good quality stem cell, if you want. The main problem of the technique is the generation of cancer when implanted, and it is a risk. And another problem is, in fact, to repair an organ, to repair the organ with the cell finally of the patient, not exactly, but quite the cell of the patient. You need 10 power 6, so 1 million of cells. So it's a large number of cells, knowing that, for example, an aggregate done in another condition, in fact, is 100 micron size. So you imagine to arrive to the million or much more, it is difficult. So I will show you an experiment which takes 10 days. In a capsule, the size of the capsule is approximately 0.5 millimeter for the diameter. So it means, and you have many capsules like this to arrive to this number of 10 power 6. So which takes approximately 10 days to get it. So this is this experiment. I don't know, so the contrast is not very good, but this is the problem of biology and biophysics of cells, so there is not so much contrast, but you see what happens, you have a proliferation, it's obvious, the size increase, and at the very end, what happens is that the cyst reaches the bande d'arrêt, which is the alginate capsule. A capsule is a gel. So what happens? So after you have the coupling between the cyst and the capsule, and of course the gel, the cyst pushes the capsule, and you imagine what happens. Anyway, so so the capsule is broken. So what what are the experimental results for us that we need? We need the measurement of the radius, inner radius and outer radius. So the size as time goes on. What we need to know is also the rate of growth, which is basically constant. So growth is mainly due to proliferation, which is roughly one proliferation per day, which explains the time scale. which explains also that we can avoid hydrodynamics in this problem, because 1 day is very long compared to any dissipation process. So what happens? So this is true, what I say, up to confluence. After, when you have a contact with the capsule, it's no more true. And I will explain what happens. And after, I will explain also that we observe a buckling instability, which is typical of mechanics, elasticity with growth. Very classical. This is what we call the bioinstability. So we recover all the characteristics of morphoelasticity, if you want. So this is typically the experimental data. So first we check that per unit time, the growth is constant. So it means that, okay, we have one proliferation. So it's rather noisy because the experiment is always taken by regular interval. And I have we have 2 data per day for one experiment. Also, you have the dynamical curve. So what you see on the right is the radius versus time. Time is in hours, so up to 300 hours. For the inner and outer radius of the same color. For example, if you focus on the green, you have the outer radius, which grows at the beginning quite exponentially, and which saturate. Saturation corresponds really when the cyst touch the capsule. So a change of the dynamics. Which is not astonishing, okay, a change of dynamics. But what it is more perhaps astonishing is the fact that for the inner radius, always a green curve, but inner radius, so lower green curve, you have quite a discontinuity of the slope of growth. So what does it mean? It means when you have something which is obvious when you think a little bit, when the cysts touch the capsule, the proliferation, the extension of the structure which can be done in 2 directions after is limited by the capsule. And in fact, it is done in direction of the inner part. So it's obvious. It's obvious, but okay, we quantify that. Okay. And we will explain. So this is the model now. So everything is clear in the experiment, in fact. So hypothesis. What are the physical hypotheses? So, so first of all, in this experiment, and it has been also checked by the experimentalists, there is no flow. Because the flow can, you may think to a flow because simply you push the water is the nutrient which contains the nutrient, so since you push the water, you have a flow. In fact, not, because the cyst is porous and the alginate is porous. And you calculate the time scale for that is 1 second, so you forget. Compared to 300 hours, you can forget. So proliferation is 1 day. What we use as a model for that is the model of hyperelasticity with growth, which is something which is rather standard. And very simple, if you write the equation like this, is that the gradient of the deformation f is related to the elastic tensor times the growth tensor. Because when we say that growth is anisotropic, it is simply because growth is represented by a tensor which is scale dependent and time dependent, because these quantities are written at time t, not at time 0, but at time t. So you have this relation. As I say, okay, everything is a tensor, but I will impose, because it's obvious that the cyst is roughly circular, the spherical symmetry. If you have a spherical symmetry, automatically the two tensors are characterized by two eigenvalues. So you have two eigenvalues, and I have written for G, I can written this for F and A, the elastic tensor. And in addition to that, in this problem, if you compare surface tension of cell, that we know, we have order of magnitude, we do not know for this typical stem cells, but we have order of magnitude. Surface tension is also a weak parameter, which play a role for tiny cysts, so at the beginning, but after disappear completely by a factor 100 or 1000. So you can forget also surface tension. And finally, when you want to make your analytical curve, it's rather easy because this calculus of anisotropic growth in spherical geometry, with, as I say, anisotropic growth, in fact, it has been done and published a long time ago with Alain Gorielli, who is in Oxford, professor in Oxford. And so it's done. So you take the formula. You have, it's not necessary to solve the equation of elasticity. You take the formula. And the formula tells you the stress which is inside the cyst when you have when the cyst grow and being characterized by the radius, the value of the growth tensor, Gr and G theta. In the formula for the stress, for example, you see only the ratio which is coming. And in fact, since the cyst remains mostly unicellular in one direction, so it means that the anisotropy of growth increases a lot because it increases in the radial direction, but it decreases in the other direction, in G theta. So in fact, it increases, and this factor gamma increases always. We apply also incompressibility, so it means that the Poisson ratio is 1/2. And with that, you have these two equations, and it's enough to have, knowing gamma, the radius. And gamma is known because we know that it is an exponential law. Applying the fact that you have no stress at both borders, you get the dynamics. So you get the dynamics at each time, but since we apply a minimization of the energy each time, you can say I get the dynamics at time t. Oh, okay. So you have two different processes, either you iterate or even you do not iterate. You take one time and you have a dynamic following this formula. So this is nice. So what I want to say that in this calculus we have a huge increase of the anisotropy of growth, because we begin by something at time t equals 0 around 1, and after it is 4. So it's a lot. As soon as we have confluence, it means that when the cyst grows enough to reach the capsule, you have an increase of the stress at the level of the cyst automatically because of the contact. Since you have an increase of this stress, what we know is that compression on cell limits the proliferation. So you have automatically a decrease of the proliferation rate, so you change the dynamic. And this is following a law which has been given some time ago by Claude Bernard, the concept of homeostasis. Simply, we have a decrease of the growth rate. So we take for the parameter, whatever the parameter, this approximation for the growth rate, where the coefficient alpha 0 has two values again because it depends if it's GR or G theta. And it's, of course, negative if you are in compression. But the compression being negative, you can take the parameter positive. So it's the same. So, but it's difficult to introduce such a things in the theory of morphoelasticity, so elasticity with growth. So the only way to introduce is to go step by step by iterative process. And this is also something we have done with Alain a long time ago. And finally, what we have, after confluence, I tell you that we do not, the cyst is no more a cyst. It becomes mostly an aggregate. You have the bioinstability. I don't know if you see the contour of the interior of the cyst on the right. I'm not sure you see. Perhaps I can show you here. This is the interior, which is here. This is the outer, so for the spherical geometry is finished now, but you have some instability of the border, and this instability of the border is what we have with the bioinstability. Bioinstability constrain growth, and it's an instability with a threshold, so you do not have at the beginning, and after you have more and more this instability of the border. So again, I represent the curve I discussed today. If you look again to this curve, you see that we can explain in fact, the dynamics of growth for this system. So why it's so important to test the stresses in this experiment? So after it's a discussion of biologists, so I don't know if they are right or not, but they have the feeling that the experiment, such a system is much better, because in the first period, you have no stress induced by growth, and that stress is very bad for stemness, to maintain the stemness. So they make a link that I do not do, because I'm not a biologist and I'm not concerned anyway, is that perhaps in aggregates, because this is one problem of this technique, there is a link between the stress which are generated at when you try to make the cell, the proliferation of the cell in a large number. It is that when the system has contains strengths inside, in fact, it leads to more differentiation. So it's a conclusion, it's their conclusion. So I want to say that this paper is in press actually. And you have again, okay, most of the author. I don't put the author of a startup, but okay. Now, how much time?
We used to have 20 minutes.
Combien? 20, c'est bon. So when we speak of the second problem, I will go faster perhaps. So the second problem concerns the imaginal disc of the wing of the Drosophila, which is a classical of embryogenesis. As you know, it's a star model, first model of embryogenesis. And so the experiments take place not at the very beginning. So we are in the stage where the imaginal disc is done, is met. So you have the imaginal disc, but you try to see what a local defect can do on this imaginal disk. Of course, it's impossible, but you can. So for that, the idea is to use mutant which have a defect, a genetic defect, rather well identified. And of course, the observation is not easy because it's rather small. And I will give you, you will see the size hereafter. And so it's a problem which is rather difficult from the experimental viewpoint. But this group of Marseille in Institut Fresnel develops sophisticated techniques of observation, optical of observation. So this is the experimental slide of the group of Marseille, around Loïc Le Goff in Institut Fresnel of Marseille. So on top, you have a drawing of the imaginal disk. For a disk, it's more a pier, but okay. For the ring, and it's better here than here. And the quality of the image. Here, you see beta. You see beta, the shape of the disk. So it's a cut, it's a transverse cut. And if you, I will try to do with that perhaps. This is, normally it must be like this, but you see it is curved and the defect is at the center. And if you do, so you have two slides which are here with a defect. So what happens is that for a normal, standard fly, Drosophila, okay, it's rather straight. And for view after, you have a deviation like this. And here it's bump because it's an older embryo. And you have always a deviation which is done by a defect, which is a genetic defect. Okay, so this is the problem. So, so I remind you that the imaginal disk is an epithelium. So it means one layer with an ECM, but it is in fact a pocket. So you have two sides of the epithelium. It's something like that, and it's a pocket. So I consider only one side of this pocket. So one side, and this is what happens. So you have a different drawing of epithelia with one layer or two layers, but with a CM. So when you discuss with biophysicists, they believe that, okay, an epithelium is very complicated, you have the actin cable and so on and so on. So I try to convince them that only from the viewpoint of mechanics, the only thing which is important is the monolayer and the ECM, because simply a simple estimation is given by the Young modulus times the head, no more. So a cable of actin plays no role, but okay, it's always something to explain. And yes, and this is something to explain. So simply in our body, there is plenty of epithelia, of course. Skin is one of them. So it's a generic problem. And the idea, when you have a successive, many layers, can we have a model of mechanics to eventually introduce this defect? So I use the Foppel-von Karman equation for that. Foppel-von Karman equation, I remind you, it's the equation which explains you the bending or the buckling of a plate which is horizontal. And okay, and this is a very classical equation of the theory of elasticity, an equation which has more than 100 years now. And in fact, it couples the vertical deviation to the stress which is localized in the horizontal plane. So this is the coupling. So it's a PDE is a coupling of two PDE of 4 in principle. Of course, it's rather complicated to solve, so imagine now I consider a bilayer and a bilayer which grows. And after I will put a defect. So the complexity increases each time. But the simplification I take is because of the experiment. I take a one-dimensional. So I forget the shape of the imaginary disk and I say it's a stripe. It's a stripe like this. So the problem is unidimensional. So it makes a simplification, but the modeling we have written is written in 2D, completely in 2D. So I want to say that this is an equation, for some reason I do not understand, but it seems that Professor Ciarlet ignored also the reason, is that it was very criticized. And Ciarlet, who is a member of Institut Jacques-Louis Lyons, he has a very nice paper about the validity of this equation and when it is valid, when you can do theorem of existence, unicity, and so on. During more than 10 years, he works on this problem. So I read some of the paper, not all of them. Some of the paper, this equation we can use, it is safe. What I want to say also, he consider a shallow shell, so it means a shell which is not originally flat, but which has some curvature also. And this is the paper I mentioned more explicitly, Ciarlet and Lodz. I have forgotten to write the date, but it's 20 years also, probably. I write it? I write it. Okay, I write it. And, well, okay. So I was very happy because I do the things in my way, so asymptotic analysis, step by step, and I find the same thing. So I was pleased, but it, in 1D is not difficult. So this is the equation we have to solve. So first of all, the equilibrium stress equation in plane in 1D is easy. It means that the stress is a constant. One component, it is a constant. And the constant is given by boundary condition, and I assume a Clamp boundary condition. Why? And compressive. And why compressive? Remember that the embryo is growing. It's not in the phase where it's very active, but it is growing. It has some growth. So it is in compression. Okay. And the second equation, which is more important for the deviation zeta, so this is this equation, Forforda, I explained. It is of Forforda, it is written here. And the difference with the ordinary von Karman equation is the right-hand side, only the right-hand side. Bon, P is an external loading, so I put an external, there is no external loading in this experiment, but I put it. I put it simply to show you that the right-hand side, which contains the gross contribution, is equivalent to a forcing. So this is the motor of the deviation, if you want. Because if you have a plate and you do not do that, okay, it remains a plate. So, okay. So, so these two terms are equivalent to a tension or a pressure, and depend on the side. So that's it. So it's very easy. So you obtain that after some calculation, I will say. So it's, and you obtain that for the bilayer. So 2 layers which are average in the thickness. So what's the main problem of a bilayer compared to one layer? The main problem is the definition of the neutral surface, of the neutral surface. So if you do not know so much, what does it mean? It's difficult to explain, but as soon as you have a sample like this, that you transform into a sample like this, you see immediately there is a line of separation between tension and compression. So if you have one layer, it's easy, it's the middle. When you have a bilayer, it's of course not easy because I have not found the demonstration. So it means that it's not easy. But it is not, it doesn't correspond to a physical surface, but it is important of an obvious physical surface. But it is important to determine this surface, and it turns out that this surface is in fact a function of the two Young modulus for the two layers and the two thickness of the two layers. And with, okay, you have a formula for that. So I insist on that because in fact it's the key for the following. And after, you have these two terms that I have written in the second member in the right-hand side of the equation. And this is the writing of these two terms. These two terms are an average of on the bilayer, so on the two layers. They contain the position of the neutral surface, so the Poisson ratio, the Young modulus of each layers, and the growth, and the growth, and the growth. And this is important, such a thing. So why it is important? It is because without growth, you will have quite no effect on the backing. For a defect, you have quite no effect. The only effect you have is the compressive, is the compression, but no more effect. As soon as you have a growth plus a bilayer, you obtain this forcing, which is due to the characteristic. So the characteristic. So what I want to say is for a bilayer, the backing process does not need any threshold, and it is increased because you have simply a bilayer, but a bilayer with growth. It's necessary. So this effect, so each time, you increase the degree to get a big backing compared to the structure. And it is rather astonishing, but okay. So now, of course you do modeling, but okay, it's an equation of fourth order to solve. It's not a big problem with Mathematica perfect. So we make trial like this. So I show you immediately the experiment, but the problem of the experiment. Okay, they say they use a fly with genetic modification, but I don't know what the genetic is doing on this fly, and they don't know. This is the problem with the experiment and the biophysicists. Many times they do not know exactly. They have the feeling that because of this mutant, they have a defect in the ECM. A defect, they have like a hole at the level of the defect in the ECM. This is what they think. And so this is their opinion, but I think a defect in the ECM modifies the growth above. So I think you have a double defect, a defect of structure and a defect of the proliferation rate. So, but anyway, we cannot measure it. And because we do not have the information, so since both effects, are combined, I put a general defect, and the general defect I take like this. It has an amplitude, and it is a Gaussian with a length, characteristic length. Okay, and so this is the unknown, and you have a comparison here between the points, which are the measurement derived from the optic, and the model. Very few parameters again, extremely few parameters again, and a big guess about the defect, since I have no information. And as you see, as soon as you have very few parameters, even if the data has plenty of points, in fact it works. And so in brown, it is the shape that I imagine when the flight is perfect, no? So originally for a young fly, a plate, and after, so I fit simply the asymptotics. Okay. So you have, okay. So morphoelasticity explained easily many things, huh? With few parameters. This is the advantage, and okay, and we have a good agreement. So this work is done always by Joseph, huh? But this is next week, in 1 week. Joseph Ackerman, a Chinese PhD student who has his thesis, I go back to China actually, Loïc Le Goff of Marseille, and myself. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you for the invitation and for your attention.
So thank you for the nice talk. Actually, I'm wondering, so because your model now they can include cell growth, yes, cell division, so growth of the tissue.
Cell proliferation,
yes.
It includes.
Yes.
It doesn't include the possibility of the differentiation.
Yes. This I understand. But because one of the puzzling phenomena in developmental biology for me is like they are the structures, like for example in plant development, in meristem development, that you have a system of cells dividing. Okay, they are also differentiating, but I would say most difficulties due to division. And then when they grow, they have fantastic radial symmetry. And this is unclear how these things are mechanically kept together. So that's working. And I'm wondering if this kind of models could be helpful to address such questions, how the structures grow, structures of dividing cells.
Are you speaking of the first problem or second?
I was rather thinking of these problems with the cell division. Mm-hmm.
Of stem cell. Mm-hmm. Of stem cell, we do not put anisotropy in the elasticity, but we can, mm-hmm. because the formula I show you is for W. W is a general non-linear elastic model, which include what you want, because actually, people are on top of that. So if you want fibers, we can put fibers and so on. So I put the simplest model, because the problem also many times, especially when you work with the experimentalists, we have not so much idea of order of magnitude. So we begin always by the simplest things. But from the viewpoint of elasticity, you can, and from the viewpoint of growth, it is included yet. And for the second, it's the same, although for the von Karman equation, I don't know if it has been done in the anisotropic case of elasticity. I am not sure it has been done. But it's done in growth.
But do you know, is elasticity changing if you change from the zones of stem cells to the differentiated cells? Is tissue built of this kind of different cells having different elasticity usually?
From the viewpoint of order of even young modulus, it's very difficult to make a difference, Very difficult. Of course, here we extract the young modulus for the cyst. We extract them. It's very difficult. The people who claim that they see difference, for example, between cancer stem cell, and healthy cell of same nature, of the same of liver, for example, the same. They see a little bit of difference, but they use AFM usually to get this value. So it means precise value. And for the young modulus, the factor is the difference is of the 1, I will say. It's between 1 and 2. But it exists. It exists. It is for sure it exists.
A simple historical question, because you mentioned history. When did experimentalists begin to grow stem cells in laboratories? When was this? Is this recently or?
No, I think there is a lot of interest for stem cells. fashionable. You have, I have written one paper on stem cell. No, this one is not. And I am always contacted for submitting my new paper. There is a review paper devoted only on stem cells.
But experimentally, when could they begin to do that?
So I cannot say. I cannot say. I don't know exactly. So the startup, for example, is revenue. If not, it's not a startup anyway, because you cannot be startup for your life. No, I don't know exactly.
So thank you for your talk, Martine. It's just a question about the buckling should be strongly influenced by what you have around your imaginal disk, because it's not in the middle of air or vacuum, right? So the fact that you buckle and how you buckle should depend a lot on the mechanics of the surrounding tissues.
We put only ECM. I put only ECM, the ECM, extracellular matrix. This is the only thing I take.
Yeah.
I don't, in the fly, you say.
Yeah,
I don't, no, I take only ECM, I take only 2 layers. This is what I explain is that if you consider multi-layers, you know, you are dominated by the product, young modulus times 8. So thin layers, you can forget. So after more, no, I don't put. I don't consider.
If that's all, I think we can thank Martine again.